Gather round, everyone, and prepare to be swept away by the thrilling exploits of Gino Cuddy, Clive Davis, and Nick Sheehan as they embark on a daring journey across the silent screen. They'll ride through the annals of film history, recounting the captivating saga of the silver screen's very first Western superstar. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new exciting edition of Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast. I am, of course, your host, Gino Cuddy, and I'm joined by my regular co-host, Nick Sheehan. Unfortunately, our other co-host, Clive Davis, has come down with a serious fever, and we wish him well, and we wish him a speedy recovery. However, we are joined by two additional folks. We are joined by a board member and director and volunteer at Hart Park, Mr. Bill West, as well as musician Ray Lowe, for our discussion of the film Square Deal Sanderson. So let's get into that. Square Deal Sanderson was released June 15th, 1919, and it was preceded by a few films that unfortunately we didn't have access to review, and those films are A Bullet for Berlin, The Border Wireless, Branding Broadway, Breed of Men, The Poppy Girl's Husband, and The Money Corral. Square Deal Sanderson was produced by William S. Hart Productions and was supervised by Thomas H. Ince and was distributed by Paramount Artcraft. It was directed by William S. Hart and Lambert Hillier, with a screenplay by Lambert Hillier from a story by Charles Alden Seltzer. It was photographed by Joe August. The art director was Thomas A. Brearley, with art titles by Irwin J. Martin, and for this edition, were lovingly restored by Mr. Bill West. The cast consists of Square Deal Sanderson being played by William S. Hart, Mary Bransford being portrayed by Ann Little, Will Bransford / Barney Owen being portrayed by Lloyd Bacon, Alva Dale being portrayed by Frank Whitson, Judge Graney being portrayed by Andrew Robson, and Sheriff Mason being portrayed by Edwin Wallach. And the plot of this film is Square Deal Sanderson comes upon the bodies of two men in a wild ravine and finds on one a letter from Mary Bransford to a brother she has not seen since a little child, but whom she hopes soon to meet, as she is being persecuted by Alva Dale, rejected suitor and villainous gang leader in a nearby town. Sanderson rides straight to her rescue and comes upon an act of cruelty in front of her house, where Dale is to hang one of her men, Barney Owen, for a trivial offense. She mistakes Sanderson for the brother she expects, and he allows her to think so until he disposes of her persecutors. Thereafter, he attempts to tell her the truth in vain. Sanderson finds he is up against a very powerful leader in Dale, who gets his true identity when Barney Owen, Mary's real brother, is in the cuffs, while the crooked sheriff jails Sanderson on false charges. The villains poison the water holes and destroy all of Mary Bransford's cattle. Sanderson breaks jail, Owen hauling the window bars out with a mule team, and the two escape. Sanderson catches the banker, a tool of Dale's, and forces restitution of $90,000 in cash to pay for the cattle. He shoots two of the poisoners and follows Dale to the house of Mary Bransford, but he is caught in a trap and tied by Dale and his Confederates. Dale dismisses them that he may triumph over Mary, with Sanderson sitting by. The struggle takes them beyond the partition, edges up to a stove, burns his bonds, mounts the partition, and throws a noose over Dale's head. He drags him up taut, half strangling him before Mary's eyes. The explanations which follow bring about an engagement between Sanderson and Mary. All right, so Square Deal Sanderson is an interesting film within William S. Hart's filmography, in that there is really only one known copy of it, and that one known copy is the copy that was utilized for a DVD that it has been released by Hart Park, and features not only newly restored title cards, but also a brilliant musical score by Mr. Ray Lowe. So, Bill, before we talk to Ray about his music here, how did you guys stumble upon this rare item, and when was it decided that there would be a DVD released of it, and all the work that you guys put into it?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying I love y'all's podcast. I'm so
Thank you.
coming from Newhall, where people here don't even know about William S. Hart, and then and thinking most people I say I volunteer for William S. Hart Museum, and it's like, who's that? What's that? So I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this podcast. Thank you for that. Anyway, Square Deal Sanderson, we had a really illegible copy. The human eye can pick out faces and people, but if the words are unreadable, it's really hard to follow the plot. So Ray and I got together and decided, we showed it for Silence of the Stars at William S. Hart Park, and so Ray was going to do the music for it anyway. And I thought, well, this is going to be a real turd. People aren't going to enjoy this. So I have a little bit of skill with Photoshop and GIMP and things like that. So I thought I can clean up the title card. But it was important to me to leave the original art that was with the title cards and just put in the words.
Yeah.
I thought the art on the original title cards was beautiful. You just couldn't read words.
I don't want for Bill's work to be underestimated. When we were talking about what to do about the illegible title cards, which quite literally eliminates the dialogue for the movie, so that's kind of bad. We thought, oh, what can we do? We even considered having somebody read a script in a microphone during the showing, which was rejected because then it's not a silent film. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, what if we made them legible? So, I sent Bill a sample of one of the cards, which I did on PowerPoint. It looked very corporate, was very clean. And Bill sends back the same title card, except this one looks just like the original. It's got the original artwork. It's the same font. It's beautiful. And I didn't actually know how he did it, but I said, wow, that would be great. And so then he proceeds to do the other 176. And I happen to know how long it took him because he had just come back from a trip from Europe, and so he was on some sort of weird jet lag, and he would send them to me one by one as he finished them. So I know for a fact that it took him 3 days. During most of which time, apparently, he was actually awake and working.
I really had no idea when I thought, how hard could it be to type up a few title cards? Well, it actually ends up, there's a lot. It was hard.
So where did you, so the titles themselves, if you're saying that they were illegible in the print, did you have access to a script from somewhere else, or were you squinting really hard? What was the process of actually finding?
Yeah, I'm exaggerating a little bit. They were really hard to read, though there was one card in particular where I had to study the plot and understand all the things that it could be saying. So there's one title card in there that may in fact be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that you couldn't read it if you stared at it long enough, but of course the audience gets, 4 seconds to read it from a 50-foot distance.
Right.
And I noticed it felt to me like this had more title cards than maybe any of the other films we've watched in the William S. Hart filmography to this point, to the point where there's parts that really feel like a conversation back and forth between two people, which I've never really seen in one of these films. All of the stuff where, he calls her Miss and then no, Mary. It actually does end up feeling like they're really having a conversation. So is this just a slightly aberrant film?
I wondered that too as I was laboriously going through them all. I thought, does this have more than the others? This ain't fair. But I really do enjoy it because Hart was a Shakespearean actor, and when you hear the intro to Tumbleweeds, for the re-release of Tumbleweeds, he speaks very eloquently. But when these title cards were written, they were real, I don't know, kind of, I just love the dialogue. I love the dialect of them. So I ended up enjoying it in retrospect.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Nick, because having played through a lot of these, that was my impression. I never tried to count or anything, but it did seem to me like there were a lot. And one of the things that affects what I do is there has to be something of a pause, not literally in the sound, but the audience is reading that card, and it takes them a little while to register what it's saying, and that triggers an emotion, and so you got to like play to that. In that sense, there's like a emotional pause while we figure out where we're going.
Right.
I found myself having to do that a lot in this movie.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta say one quick thing about this movie. I gotta believe, and Gino might correct me on this because he's a B-Western guy. I think this might be the only film where two guys shoot each other in the back. both shoot each other in the back. I won't explain how that's done. You'll have to go check out the movie.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. I have actually never seen an example of that anywhere else where two individuals shoot each other in the back. Nor was I expecting the out of left field ending where where he strings up Frank Whitson. Like that was like, yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna hang this guy and strangle him to death and everything else and flop him about, and he tries to escape. Oh, I'm gonna use a rock to bash his fingers and all that. It's like really, really intense, actually, that ending, and brutal. I think it was one of the more brutal endings to his films.
Yeah.
This, like, I don't think this would have passed the code. A few years later, I think this is definitely it's always exciting to see how edgy some of these pre-code films actually are. And yeah, you're right. That the whole end part, I was shaken by how rough it is. And it's funny. I brought this up before, but I don't know if you know the contemporary actor Bob Odenkirk. He's been in a couple of action films lately, Nobody and stuff. But I think there's a bit of William S. Hart about him, and he's the right age as well. Like, he's a man, in his 60s, I would imagine by now. Anyway, it's funny. When I'm watching, I always think, somebody should do a biopic, and and we should cast Bob Odenkirk as William S. Hart.
I think that's a good choice. That's a good choice.
So Ray, how do you? Something that I'd love to know, and this goes for any silent film musical composer, but how do you go about composing a score for films like this? Do you, take from? I've heard that some people take like some compositions from the past and try to rework them into something resembling a score, and then I've also heard that people just watch the film numerous times and get a feeling for each scene, and that's how they compose the score. How do you do it?
Well, one has to make an immediate choice. It is actually true that especially less than the top biggest budget silent films, the way the music was oftentimes done was literally just playing classical music over the film. And that would generally be relatively sparse because we're talking about live musicians. How many can you hire? You rarely are you going to get a full orchestra. Rarely are you going to get any orchestra, which is how theater organs and pianos and stuff ended up being associated with silent films. So when I first experienced this fundraising event called Silence Under the Stars at Hart Park, it was about 20 years ago, and the music was inappropriate. It was a very fun event, but the music was inappropriate, played on a loop, live, very well performed, just not appropriate for a movie. And so I had had a little bit of experience doing a live scoring for a high school Shakespeare play. So I knew that it was possible to do that. So I proposed to the board at Hart Park that I could do this for their event, and I've been doing it for now about 20 years. So my thinking on this, first of all, you find out that I'm not a film buff or film historian, but it didn't take very long to discover that there are virtually no surviving original scores. The ones that do exist are not probably indicative of a Hart movie anyway. The most widely heard is probably Mortimer Wilson's score for The Black Pirate, which Douglas Fairbanks hated, so that's probably not a good sign. he never worked with him again. Robert Israel, here in Los Angeles, still living, has rewritten a score for The Black Pirate. That sounds more like a modern score than it does a 1920 score. And so one of my first decisions was, am I going to even bother to try to recreate a 1920s sound? And I decided quickly no, for two reasons. I don't intuitively know what 1920s music sounds like. And like all other moviegoers who are alive today, I was raised on, what you see in the theater. So to me, what is intuitive about film music is what I hear in modern film scores. Okay, so first criticism, yeah, but you're matching a modern sound with an old movie. Isn't that not authentic? And I'd say, well, okay, I'm going to make it an excuse because I'm not capable of doing 1920s music, but the excuse I make up is what is not obsolete is the feeling you're supposed to get by watching that scene and hearing that music. And I would submit that the music that triggers that emotion that's supposed to be, let's say, the sweet love theme. The sweet love theme of 2025 sounds different than the sweet love theme of 1925. And so if you want, and I think what's more important is to get the audience to feel the way the filmmaker intended them to feel at that moment. So I try to do the music that way. Now, what I do in particular, I'm not an artful composer. I'm strictly amateur. I happen to be gifted with the ability to improvise easily. So if I am going to play a live show for an hour plus that is supposed to be emotion centered, it's important for me to not to have to think about what I'm doing. It's important for me to think like the audience, how am I supposed to feel right now? And then to allow my improvisation ability to just make that sound without really thinking a lot about it. And so what I have developed slowly over the years is this rig, I'll call it, which enables me to have at fingertip control all the instruments of the orchestra and the various textures and so forth, at least most of them, and so that I can, without a lot of fuss, change the sound to what I'm hearing in my head is what I should be doing right now. And so what I end up doing on a show is I'll make notes about the emotions. I might actually compose 8 or 12 bars of music as a theme ahead of time. But beyond that, that's all I do. Everything else is improvised on the spot.
Wow. That's like doing a high wire act or something like that. As a non-musician, the idea of attempting to go out there and just on a wing and a prayer, and obviously, there is structure, and there's talent, but that's terrifying to me.
Well, you'll notice I've fit my rationale to what I could do. Like since 1925, 5 old style music is something I'd have to think about a lot. There's no way you can manage all of this, properly and still be having your mental bandwidth taken up with, that kind of stuff. It needs to be what comes naturally.
Right.
And the other important thing is to not drink too much before the show starts.
Always good advice. Always.
So that makes the fingers clumsy.
Well, there's no potty breaks during the show run of the show.
Of course. Wow. So yourself, are there film scores that you were inspired by growing up, or now, that people who you think like, yeah, that's
I have an affiliation with an orchestra in town here that's given me a little bit of access to some real pros, real composers, and real musicians, and I really admire the work of James Newton Howard as a film scorer. I would say, as in terms of versatility and fitting things to the film, I think he's probably my favorite.
Okay. Can you think off the top of your head of a film? I don't know if I actually know his work. What would be?
Well, let's see. Famous would be he co-wrote Batman with Hans Zimmer.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. I do, in fact, have that on my iPod. So there.
Yeah.
I do know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wow. So
he did all of the scores for the Stranger Things series.
Okay.
As well.
Wow. Okay.
And you go to his studio, he's got literally 200 film posters on his wall,
Cool.
each of which he scored.
Wow. Yeah, it was just when you spoke about the importance of emotion in music, it immediately, it caught me. I think my favorite scores are the ones that are like that, are held to poppin', like they're not playing around. They want you to feel.
Yeah.
And so when I was living in Tokyo, Ennio Morricone, Il Maestro, brought the orchestra from Rome, and he performed about 3 hours. I think he was well into his 80s.
Yeah.
For over 3 hours, standing there, and I cried no less than at least four different times. My wife kept looking over and be like, "Are you okay?" Yes, I'm great. Just because that music has been such a part of my life since I was 11, 12 years old, and it continues to be a huge part.
One of the things that is different about silent movies than quote regular movies is when you're watching a regular movie, the music, with very rare exceptions, the music is always there, and you don't, most of the time you don't notice it because it's deliberately very much underneath the dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're used to as moviegoers. With a silent movie, there's never any sound to the dialogue. So the music, I think, should be more present. Because if it was as underlayment as it is in real movies, like where is it? It's too silent. Right. So it's not as if I've ever scored a real movie for real, but not having to worry about being too present is not so much a problem for me.
I would disagree with you, Ray, and say the only watchable version of Square Deal Sanderson is a real movie for real.
Yeah.
It rates a real movie for real.
Granted.
So, Bill, you mentioned before you were maybe going to share a little story about how the DVD came to be, or something related.
It's just Ray and me thinking it would be easy and just diving into it and discovering quite the opposite. I can give a link to it if people want to find it, but you can get it on eBay. So,
part of it was this was I think, Bill, is this correct? Of all the movies we've shown at the park, this is the only one which literally you couldn't get anywhere unless you were willing to, always felt, how did those people feel who bought the one available DVD and got it home and realized they couldn't really read the title cards? I guess they spend a lot of time hitting pause.
I guess so.
Kind of ruins the experience. So, it was well, since we'd already actually done just about all of the work, and knowing that the film community did not have access to a copy of this movie that you could actually enjoy and read, it was kind of like, well, don't we kind of have to make it available? Yeah. And for the 4 people who have bought it, they apparently agree.
You guys being 2 of those 4. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the work. We've talked on the show from the beginning. I mean, all of this is kind of newer to me than it is maybe to Gino or to Clive. They have a bit more knowledge, I think, around silent film and around early westerns. But for me, it's been a real treat, because so much of what I love about the kind of the 60s and 70s western, I'm realizing is true to the silent western, right? So much of that, the less clear binary oppositions between good guy, bad guy, this more kind of this more kind of meanness. Something like Hell's Hinges, which is like truly apocalyptic, or as we talked at the end of this film, right, which goes right off the rails. Like, it's very, very cool.
Brutal is the right word.
And wait till you get that one scene that Clive will enjoy on the whistle. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So you got that to look forward to. And speaking of other movies, first of all, Nick, I agree about spaghetti westerns. I'm just sort of learning about them myself, but I got an Ennio Morricone soundtrack, and it's like, oh my Lord, this is wonderful. And now I'm hooked, and I'm slowly. I feel like there's so many of them. I just don't. There's not enough time to learn them all. And also, I wanted to mention, speaking of other movies, because I know Gino's a B-Western fan. Apparently, Square Deal Sanderson was remade as in a Tim McCoy 1936 movie called The Man from Guntown.
Ooh.
I've never seen it. I don't know, but
wow, I did not know that. I sincerely need to track that down.
yeah, I thought of you when I saw that, and I looked through my collection, and it's like, oh crap, I don't have it.
Sorry, what was the title again? I'm just going to
The Man from Guntown, Tim McCoy, 1936.
I think that was made during his Puritan period, where he was at Puritan Pictures, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, I will tell you that I'll just talk about spaghetti westerns. One of the sounds which I did not put onto my scoring rig was the whistle.
Right. You have a mouth harp?
I don't have that. I do have mandolin, but yeah.
And clanging church bells are always a good one.
Yeah. So if you'd like, I could play you 2 minutes of varied sounds, and you can. Since there's no film here, you'll just have to imagine in your mind's eye what it is I might be scoring.
Perfect. Please do.
Absolutely. Go on ahead. Ray, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely beautiful. Just fantastic. That's why, folks, if you could ever make it to the Santa Clarita Valley in Newhall, California, and Hart Park, please support, the Silence Under the Stars whenever it comes around, because Ray is a fantastic performer, fantastic composer. And I think we were talking a little earlier about, his maybe contributing to the upcoming Blu-ray of Tumbleweeds, and him sort of saying that Robert Israel should be the head man of that. And well, I agree that Mr. Israel is fantastic. I do think that Ray is selling himself somewhat short there, because he is also a fantastic performer and composer. I really felt like I was watching a silent film from 1925 or whatever. That was brilliant, and I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much, Ray.
I think Clive is going to be sad that he was not able to be here for this. That was fine. If I had my lighter, not that I smoke, I would have got it in the air there.
I hope Zoom didn't distort the quality too much, because I'm not sure if I actually hit the record button on that.
Okay.
Sounded good here.
Okay.
Oh, that was amazing.
Is it okay? Can I give? Okay, let me say something about Square Deal Sanderson. It was originally a story written for a magazine. Then it got published into a book. If you go on eBay.com and look for Square Deal Sanderson, you'll find a lot of copies of the book.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to find our video of it, DVD of it, it's tinyurl.com/Square Deal Sanderson. So that'll get you straight there.
And I will also
feel free to cut that.
No. By all means, go get yourself a copy.
Right, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to provide a link to purchase that in the show notes below. So if you're looking at the description box, folks, and you see the links there, please click on all of the links that we have. And please support not only this podcast, but also the efforts of Mr. Lowe and Mr. West at Hart Park, and we thank them for taking the time out to join us for this. Now, while we didn't really get into our thoughts that much about Square Deal Sanderson, I think it's an okay film. I don't know if you would rank it as one of his best, but I do find myself enjoying it quite a bit for the fact that not many films from this period. I mean, I ran down the list earlier of just how many films we don't have available for us to view. Mm-hmm. How many films from this specific period aren't available. So it's great to actually have a bit of the June 1919 sort of nugget of William S. Hart's career here. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought Ann Little made for a great heroine. I love Frank Whitson in this. He is just a fantastic as Dale. And if you want to see another great Frank Whitson performance where he's chewing the scenery, please check out the Ken Maynard silent western from 1924 called $50,000 Reward, where he plays the main villain in that. Just an absolutely underrated villainous performer whenever you see him on screen.
Yeah. What I like about this film is, and like I said, I'm a total just novice consumer, because my introduction to Hart films was playing the first show, and then 18 or 19 shows since. So over that period of time, we've probably actually shown most, maybe all of the readily available films. So that's my basis of comparison. I would say as the casual viewer, who after a while you start feeling like, that plot's kind of simplistic, and, it's not that much different from the other one, the bad boy turned good, falls in love with a girl at first sight. Okay, I just described a plot element of 12 movies?
At least.
But
at least 12 of the Hart films.
What I loved about this, and why it was, I think, worth putting all the effort into it, or rather worth it for Bill, especially to put the effort into it, I think this plot was more intricate. I think there's more to it and more original. Things you hadn't really seen in Hart stories before. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, so it's funny. In my notes that I wrote down here, I said, the villain and the hero are more nuanced than usual. As is the whole plot about irrigation and the crooked town, bank, and sheriff. I believe this is based on a novel, and I think it shows in its relative complexity. So exactly what you just said, I have here on my paper. I was
Phew.
surprised.
And you just heard it from somebody who actually knows.
Yeah, no, it's and then there being more. I still feel like there's more intertitles. So again, that kind of lends it to it being a bit more nuanced. And then the other thing is, this is one of the few films where I think he's not really a bad guy. He's just kind of a straight up good guy.
Yeah,
Because
that's true.
normally when he does this thing where he pretends to be somebody else, it's because he's killed the other person, and he's having to like, his mom is coming to town. I got to pretend to be him now. This is the first time we see him do it just purely out of the goodness of his heart. He's trying to help this woman in need.
Yeah, he does not start out as an outlaw.
Yeah.
He still pretends to be somebody who's dead, but he didn't do the killing. So it's different in that regard.
Yeah,
And also, he did it for a noble reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
right. And he winds up in jail too, which, again, the other films are a little more distant from me now, given, just how many we've reviewed. But this is the first time or one of the rare times where you actually see him in jail and he looks all defeated and everything, and, it looks like the villain's got the upper hand. It's really kind of a seldom thing to see him lose total control, like that.
Mm-hmm. It's quite nice when the villain shows up and offers him $5,000 to like get out of town or whatever. I do like he just kind of explosively laughs. He's like,
Oh, I love William S. Hart's laugh.
Yes.
get out of here.
You could, you know that meme that goes around. Oh, you can't hear a picture. When you see William S. Hart laugh, you could hear that picture.
Yes. And he laughs so rarely that scene caught me too, because he's always so stern-faced, stone-faced, and that scene where he busts out laughing, it's just like, wow, Hart's laughing. Okay.
And there's some very intense lighting in this as well. Like there's some really, I mean, I know that the print is the film we're about to talk about in a moment is a stunningly clear print for Wagon Tracks. But even so, you can still see that dramatic lighting, that kind of chiaroscuro, intense light on the one side of his face and dark. And leaves you wishing, it'd be so nice if somebody would unearth a beautiful pristine print. But
I imagine that the final scene where he does in the villain, inside, and it's very, very tense. He starts out being tied up. It's all filmed indoors, and I wonder if you had an excellent print as it was created, that would really show, that the lighting contributes to the tension of the moment that ultimately explodes into violence, and then you see this, brutal justice.
Yes.
I mean, you would want, I imagine a lighting designer today would really want to play up those emotions.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there is a shocking reveal quite near the end where a character that we've been led to believe the entire film is dead turns out not to be dead at all. And
that was a great Dr. Caligari-esque twist there. That was great.
Yeah.
And Gino and I talked about this before, so I'll confess to being the guilty party. Comparing this Square Deal Sanderson to the Square Deal Man, which is my least favorite Hart film. This is great.
It's funny, we've watched so many of them and in such close, like I'm starting to kind of lose the plot of which ones are which at this point.
Me too. I looked at my notes and I said, it's a typical one where Hart starts as a bad man and becomes a good man, but he doesn't start out all that bad and he doesn't become all that good.
No, yes. A bit less of an arc for him here.
Yeah. But this one, I think, is a pretty fun film.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, you and Ray, And you and Ray did a fantastic job basically resurrecting this film from the dead, and I think you are to be commended for that.
Thank
Hopefully someday a better print resurfaces and you guys can go to town on that just like you did this.
I hope so too. Or I hope to gain the skills to improve the film part and not just the title cards part. I did the easy thing. Film restoration's hard.
Yeah. And I worry that people are just feeding things now into AI that
Interesting.
what it actually produces, is that in any way close to what I've had some family photographs that family members have shared with me, like, oh, look at this photograph of our great great grandparents, and I'm thinking, is that, I mean, like, I see the original picture and I see what AI has produced, and I'm like, yeah, how accurate is this? Like,
I have a Hart-related story about that. We just had the reopening of Hart's home in Hart Park, and I took a nice, well, I thought nice, panorama shot of the opening ceremonies, and there's the mayor speaking and all these dignitaries. And I accidentally, because panorama shots, I accidentally cut off the top of the building. And I asked AI, can you replace the top of the building? And first it did, but it made it a peaked roof that it wasn't. And then it fixed, so I scolded it and it fixed it. But when I got to the final product, all the faces had changed. The mayor was no longer the mayor. His off to the side was completely missing, and this other person had gained 300 pounds. It was like, no, I can't use that.
yeah, yes, the AI hallucinations. So I'm dubious of restorations that are done with AI. I don't think we're there yet.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, need a lot more training.
Well, I thank you guys so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to have guests on the show, and you guys have brought such value to this episode. As I said, I'm sure Clive is going to be eating his. I don't think Clive wears a hat, but yeah, if he did, he'd be eating it over not being able to be here.
Well, thank you guys. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a real joy and pleasure to discover your podcast and what you're doing for the film community.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
And can I toss in a little bit of trivia about Wagon Tracks, since you guys are going to go on and talk about it?
Yeah, please.
Looking at my notes about Wagon Tracks, and that was made during the time when Hart was about to join Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks to form United Artists, and he dropped out at the last minute. And he made 2 pictures in that time. Wagon Tracks was when he broke up with his main sweetheart. I'm drawing a blank on her name. I can't believe it.
Winifred Westover?
No, Jane Novak.
Jane Novak.
The next film, John Petticoats, is where he met Winifred Westover and married her for a while. So I just want to throw that in.
The second piece of trivia is it's once the technology advanced to the part, I usually make a personal recording of the live score when I was doing them, unlike I unsuccessfully did today, but I usually have that. And since Bill has already sent me the DVD to practice to, and now I have this live recording, I just sync the two together and I post it on my YouTube channel. Wagon Tracks happens to be the second most viewed video on my channel. Right after the 7 years ago Tollgate, and then, but close second is Wagon Tracks at 5,000 views.
Awesome.
Which is
very good.
Yeah, if you want to hear it, we'll leave Wagon Tracks to the experts here, but if you want to hear it with Ray's music, check it out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is the @ Ray Loves to Make Music. Really hard to remember. Anyway, thank you guys.
Yeah, I want to basically reiterate Nick's points here. I want to thank you both for coming on and discussing this wonderful film with us and the process behind the making of the DVD and everything else. I really want to thank you guys for coming onto the show. It's greatly, greatly appreciated, and congrats on all of the success and the beautiful work that you're doing at Hart Park. It's really appreciated.
Thank
Thank
you. You're
you.
welcome.
And I look forward to, and you guys can come out and visit Hart Park, and we'll tour you around the place.
I would love to do that. So hopefully sometime the next couple of years, I'll be down.
That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you.
Guys.
Goodbye.
All right, and now we're going to be moving on to our second film that we're going to be discussing tonight, which is Wagon Tracks, which was released July 29th, 1919. It was produced by William S. Hart Productions and supervised by Thomas H. Ince. It was distributed by Paramount Artcraft and was directed by Lambert Hillier, with a story and screenplay by C. Gardner Sullivan. It was photographed by Joe August with art direction by Thomas A. Brearley and art titles by Irwin J. Martin. The cast consists of Buckskin Hamilton being portrayed by William S. Hart, Jane Washburn being portrayed by Jane Novak, Donald Washburn being portrayed by Robert McKim, Guy Merton being portrayed by Lloyd Bacon, Billy Hamilton being portrayed by Leo Pearson, Rick Muldoon being portrayed by Berthold Sprout, and the captain being portrayed by Charles Arling. And the plot of this film is the wagon tracks leading to Westport Landing are those of immigrants westward bound during the days of the gold rush. Buckskin Hamilton, a desert guide, comes down to meet the steamer on which he expects his younger brother Billy. On going aboard, he learns that he has been killed, the story being that he was shot by Jane Washburn in self-defense. He credits part of the story. It is inconceivable that she deliberately shot him, but he suspects that her gambling brother Donald and his confederate Merton had something to do with the killing. These people accompany a long wagon train in the charge of Buckskin. On the desert, one of the wagons carrying water falls over a precipice, and the entire train is put on short allowance. Buckskin shows so much tender consideration for the weak and helpless at this time that Jane is deeply moved and confesses that the man killed had not annoyed her. Buckskin is now certain she did not do the shooting. He captures Donald and Merton at night, binds them to a lariat, and drives them out on the desert to walk until one or the other confesses. They become guilt-crazed by thirst and accuse each other, the guilt being finally fixed on Donald. A band of Indians nearby has demanded of the immigrants the murder of one of their number, a man for a man. Buckskin gives Donald the alternative of going to the Indians or of shooting himself. Donald attempts to escape, but is captured by the Indians and taken to the torture. The wagon train goes on, now unmolested. On reaching its destination, Jane, who has learned to love Buckskin, seeks to restrain him from going over the trail, but he decides to leave her. She finally hopes he will come back someday. He regretfully says, maybe, and returns to his duty. Now, I really liked Wagon Tracks. I think that this is one of his better films from this time period. It must be said, too, that the print that we had of this film was exceptional. I mean, the Olive, sadly now defunct Olive Films restoration of this was phenomenal, just phenomenal with the color tinting, the beautiful piano score, not as good as, say, a Ray Lowe score, but an enjoyable score nonetheless. And I really, honestly, in one of the first sequences where Hart discovers that his brother's been shot and everything, I nearly choked up. Mm-hmm. You know, it's really an emotionally gripping scene, and especially seeing the close-ups of Hart and just welling up with tears in his eyes. I mean, again, this is a man who, unfortunately, throughout the passage of time has been, it's been said of him that his acting was never great. Mm-hmm. I steadfastly disagree with that sentiment. I think that his acting here is above par, and honestly, I'm right there with him. It's like that could be your brother. Being, who shot dead, and you're just discovering that, and to find out that a innocent looking woman may have done it, it elevates that feeling immensely. Mm-hmm. And, I love some of the camera work in this, and especially the lighting, like especially at night when the fire is going and you see that some close-ups of Hart's face, he really looks like he could be the devil. Especially frightening when considering what he's about to send our good old friend Robert McKim to. Mm-hmm. But it's also interesting how he just leads them out into the desert, almost dying of thirst,
Yeah, that scene is incredible. That scene, in fact, I have a feeling that I wonder, like, there's a very similar scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I wonder if Sergio Leone had seen this, like just kind of this endlessly walking and these long, long, beautiful long shots of this desert landscape, and it's super intense. Like I mean, I was just like at that part, and so one of the things I think is different than again maybe some of the other ones. This is not exactly William S. Hart as bad guy goes good. It's almost as good guy goes bad. Like
Yeah,
he starts as like a solid, upstanding guy, and then his brother is murdered, and he figures out that the murderers are part of his wagon train, and he just goes way off the rails and becomes like yeah, like an avenging angel or something like that, like
right.
an avatar of pure vengeance and hate. And that scene is just yeah, it's super intense. It's a great stretch of the movie, that whole chunk where they're out in the desert and he's goading them to like, you're eventually going to turn on each other. You're going to show me what I need to know. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think, the religious themes, even though they're not as pronounced as say they are in Hell's Hinges and The Disciple and everything, there is sort of that Old Testament thing bubbling
Mm,
to the surface with the whole eye for an eye thing,
yes.
like they killed an Indian, so we're going to in turn kill a white man,
Hmm.
and honestly, you could look at the Indians and Native Americans or whichever you feel to call them. You look at them in this film, and on the surface they could be seen as the quote unquote savages that they were often portrayed as during this time. But honestly, I didn't get that impression,
No.
because Hart is actively communicating with them, and he's basically like they're on his level, and you know I mean, you're sort of siding with them. Like, yeah, they killed one of them. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you get one of the white guys in
Mm.
return, So it's not like the Indians are painted with a wide brush like they're
Nope.
the villains. It's not like how it was with, say, the Aryan at the end or some of the others. This is actually kind of a progressive a portrayal of them at this time.
I think so. In fact, the overall diversity of the film surprised me. So the opening section of the film, when we're on the kind of riverboat as it's coming in, and there's the gambling, right, and this is how everything goes wrong for William S. Hart. His brother gets killed on the boat, but we also keep cutting back to a band of like African American musicians, kind of just like jamming out in there, and I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of the first time I've seen really many black actors in a certainly in a William S. Hart or even in a kind of a silent film. And then yeah, when the I think they're Kiowa, a tribe shows up. You're right. At first I was like, oh, is this going to be one of these like circle the wagons and the indigenous folks are coming to attack the poor white people, but not at all. And it all comes down to a kind of a misunderstanding. There's like a cultural issue, and yeah, one of the cowboy characters basically, yeah, kills one of the indigenous characters. And you're right, like it's not just a thing of like, yeah, we're going to whole scale massacre. It's more, nope, okay, one for one. Like you've killed one of our people wrongfully. You got to send us somebody to make this right. And I mean, the funny thing is just like, expecting Robert McKim to do the right thing. That's the that's the biggest that's the
Yeah.
biggest stretch that the film makes is you kind of have to think like, come on, William, like really? He gives him a gun and tells him like, you know, uh, yeah, and then of course he immediately runs away. But hilariously, part of the trick of it is that the Kiowa have moved their camp. So William S. At the end of the film, William S. Hart thinks, "Oh, I'm going to have to now sacrifice myself because Robert McKim's run off." So he walks out in what he thinks is the direction of the camp, and Robert McKim runs away and ends up running directly into the camp of the Kiowa. Um, it's quite nice. It's a nice ironic ending.
I don't know why, but I see that ending kind of differently. Like I saw it as William S. Hart saw Robert McKim running up that hill and was chasing after him to get him to come back to the wagon train so that then he could bring them to the indigenous
Okay.
people. But in my feeling, I almost got the feeling that William S. Hart knew that that was going to happen and tipped
Okay.
off the indigenous people that
Right.
hey, he's going to this our sacrifice is going to run off, so why don't you catch him at the head there?
Okay, yeah. I
You
think the
know.
film supports that reading for sure as well. Um, but yeah, no, I have to say for me, this is definitely both of these films were actually I enjoyed both of these.
Mhm.
But this one is I think this one is a high water mark. Like I put this kind of not quite at Hell's Hinges, but it's in that echelon of that upper tier, I think, of William S. Hart. Um, I quite like the switch from like the nice guy to that really quite terrifying yeah, angel of death he almost becomes in the middle part of the film. It's also interesting too because it ends with him, as you pointed out, like she kind of wants him to stay, but he feels bad, I think, about the fact that he was instrumental in her brother's death, even though he didn't kill her brother. I think he feels like I can't stay, and that's why he leaves at the end. So again, he denies himself happiness in a way. Um,
But
and
at
another,
least, he's not venturing off to Alaska, colder than ice,
yes,
and shivering and frying like the world's worst fish, and
yeah.
reading this letter saying, "Oh, we're me and what's the other guy's name? Me and Guy Merton are getting along famously."
Yes, yes.
Like so
We're gonna
famously
name our
in
second kid after you. Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks.
And again, yes, we are harping on the ending of Wolf Lowry. We will
hmm
never let this go, Geraldine. So,
Nope.
but yeah, I mean, it is one of those great, rare William S. Hart endings where he doesn't get the girl at the end,
hmm
and I guess it's left up to audience conjecture because she doesn't necessarily outright disown Merton's character, but she does pity him a bit.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if they necessarily do wind up getting hitched, but I think the impression that I'm given is that, yeah, that engagement's broken off now,
Yeah.
like totally. Um, but yeah, like again, I love the fact that this film got a restoration because I do think it's one of his better films from this period, and I do like the rather progressive portrayal of the Native Americans in this
Mhm.
film. Because unfortunately, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong because it's been a while since I've seen this film, but there's another film in the William S. Hart catalog where I don't think that they're treated as well.
Mhm.
And that film is a film called White Oak, which is coming down the pike shortly. But I could be wrong on that because it's been a while since I've seen this film. But uh, but yeah, I really liked Wagon Tracks. I think it's one of his better films. I mean, he's not playing the hat wearing, gun toting
Mhm.
guy that he usually plays, but he's no wimp either.
No,
I mean,
no, no.
and he's just brilliant in this. And
I will say though,
go
if you
ahead.
hire him to guide your wagon train and then halfway through the trip he suddenly takes off and goes away into the desert with two dudes, and then you get in like I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, people
Like
are gonna be
his
mad at him.
like
Right.
yeah, like he's basically laying a trap for the Native Americans to come in and infiltrate and everything else. But
Yeah, unintentionally, but he
yeah,
does kind of precipitate the events that happen by taking off midway through the job.
right,
Um,
right.
but no, this film is yeah, this is a solid William S. Hart. I would feel comfortable recommending anyone, and it's great that it's such a pristine print because again, you get a sense somehow of like that the actors are like this is gonna sound silly, but like real people.
Right.
Sometimes when you're watching something that's really old, like in fact, this print is so clear that you can see Jane Novak's individual hairs, like in some
Right.
scenes, right? Like what
And
I mean?
the print is so pristine that when you do get those close-ups of William S. Hart, you could see the pancake makeup that silent film actors, had to
Yeah.
wear back then in order for the lights to bounce off right on their faces.
Yes, yeah. And I quite like, I don't mind his little kind of we've seen him wearing the buckskins and the kind of like that kind of hat thing before, so
Yeah.
it didn't throw me too much. Um, but it's funny when you listed off the titles of some of the films that are not extant between the one that had Berlin in the title immediately jumped out to me, and I was wondering like, do we know anything about was that like a war film, or was that like just
It likely was.
okay?
I wasn't actually expecting this, but oh, I could read it off from
Yeah,
the
just out
Diane
of interest.
Kaiser Kozarski book. A Bullet for Berlin, produced by William S. Hart Productions for the National Association of the Motion Picture Industry, distributed by Paramount, released on September 1918, approximately one half reel. Written and directed by William S. Hart and photographed by Joe August, and the cast consists of William S. Hart and Fritz as themselves. The review is: in this short film created for the Fourth Liberty Loan, Bill Hart, asleep by his pinto pony Fritz, dreamed of a visit to Berlin where he busted through a window and shot up the Kaiser in court in sure enough Western dance hall fashion. And then, after comparing the Kaiser to a rattlesnake, which Bill permitted to live, we saw him going hell bent for election to buy bonds.
Wow. Okay, so basically it was a war bonds, like it was like a yeah film. So it's
Yeah.
not exactly a movie. It was more an ad to buy war bonds. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's one of two that he made because I think he made one earlier for a second Liberty Loan earlier on, where I think he's acting with Mary Pickford and some other famous silent actors on that. So that's one of
Okay.
two that he made around this time. But yeah, I guess even well, it makes sense that good old Bill would be a
Oh, of course.
patriotic American and everything else. Like true blue, red, white, and blue, apple pie, everything
Right.
else. But yeah,
Huh.
that is that I would like to see that. I don't think that unfortunately that exists, but if that ever turns up, I think that as with all these films that unfortunately we haven't been able to review, that I hope either turn up or are released to the public or whatever. I would hope that we can see those and review them. But
Awesome. I don't know if I have anything else that I need to add, other than
no,
yeah, this is these are this was a solid for me. This was a solid double bill.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, same here. I think I more or less favor Wagon Tracks. I think it was an easy. I think primarily, and I don't. And again, I don't want to be the guy that's like I can't handle VHS murkiness and scratches
right.
and whatever. But I do think that I do have to give it to Wagon Tracks simply because it was a better viewing experience. Not I don't know, and actually, I do think that the story is significantly stronger in this than I think Square Deal Sanderson was. Not to say that Square Deal Sanderson is a slouch of a film. I
Mm,
don't think it is at all, especially given that ending
mm.
and everything. But yeah, I do have to say that I do favor Wagon Tracks, and when we record our next episode, and hopefully Clive would have gotten better by this point, and we'd be able to sit and have a powwow, if you will, about
Mhm.
these two films. Hopefully, Clive could very quickly at the start of the show give us his
Yes, give
thoughts
us his two
on
cents. Yeah.
these last two films. Give him his chance to get his 2 cents in,
Hmm.
certainly. But I guess for me, that about does it as well. I can't think of much more I need to add here. But yeah, another great pair of films with, I think, Wagon Tracks being the superior film of this bunch. And yeah, thank you guys for listening and thank you for supporting the show. And quick announcement there, for those of you who aren't a part of the Heart to Heart Facebook group and don't follow me publicly and whatever and aren't connected with me, I actually have acquired a very rare William S. Hart film entitled The Saga of William S. Hart, which is a documentary that was produced in 1959 by Black Hawk Films. And the reason for my acquiring this film is because it actually contains footage from some William S. Hart films that are no longer extant. And for that reason and for that sole reason, I'm having this film transferred by a wonderful guy by the name of Stan Taffel, who runs the Cinecon Film Festival. And I can't wait to share that with you guys. I will be making that film public. And we will also be reviewing it on this podcast, I think, at the culmination of the show. And yeah, so very much looking forward to that. I'm glad to hear that the William S. Hart Mansion, is back open and everything's back to normal now, as it should be. And hopefully someday, Nick, Clive, and I will be able to
Hmm.
go there. maybe we should start a fundraiser, and send us there. So, again, thank you guys for listening and continuing to support the show. It's greatly appreciated. And again, we send Clive our best thoughts and well wishes for him to get better. We hope he gets well soon.
Big thanks to our guests in this
Yes,
episode.
also big thanks to Ray Lowe and Bill West for joining us for our discussion of Square Deal Sanderson. And I guess that about does it. In the words of William S. Hart, adios amigos. God bless you all, each and every one. Good night.
This has been a Gino Cuddy podcast production.